What's up guys, welcome back to the championship rounds, and today we're going to be going over some heavyweight boxing news. There's been a lot to digest recently with the Usyk versus AJ fight, and now Fury's coming out and talking about all the offers that he wants before he fights Usyk. Kind of going to delve into a little bit of the landscape of the current heavyweight division, who's booked up in fights, who isn't. And yeah, that's it really. So we'll start off with the AJ Usyk fight, because it was a great fight, to be honest. I think AJ definitely fought a better performance than he did in the first fight. There was a bit more aggression on his side, but Usyk was just the smarter fighter in there, and he showed his own grit and perseverance, especially coming out in round 10 and then kind of taking over in towards the latter end of that fight and winning by decision. In terms of the aftermath of the fight, I think a lot's been kind of made of what AJ was saying in there. I thought it was obviously very distasteful throwing the bouts that do not belong to him anymore over the side of the ring. I thought that was a bit I understand him walking away, because when you're angry, obviously you don't want to say stupid stuff, but then he did come back and he obviously went on a little bit of a rant, which was as most of Twitter have probably told him. But yeah, it's a strange one. Obviously there's a lot of emotions at the time, and I think a meal was made of it at the time, but it's kind of died down now. So it was one of those things at the time where it's like, what is he doing? Because we've not really seen a strange rant like that in a very, very long time. But yeah, in terms of AJ, there was a lot of people before the fights coming out and saying he should retire if he loses, he should do this, blah blah blah. And I think he kind of just needs to block out that noise, maybe take a little bit of time off, but he's definitely not done. By no means is he done. There's a lot of interesting fights still in that division for AJ, and we're going to go through. I've made a list of the heavyweights that are booked up and what could potentially then come out of those fights after they've happened. So in terms of the heavyweight landscape, we've got Ortiz versus Ruiz coming up. We've got Dillian Whyte, who's actively looking for an opponent at the minute. There's kind of talks about him and Daniel Dubois, but there's nothing set in stone at the moment. I think a lot of people would love to see AJ versus Whyte too. That's definitely a fight that would get people interested. It's a heavyweight British boxing fight. The first one was very, very entertaining, and I guess they're 1-1, because I think they fought years and years back, and I think Dillian Whyte won that. So that's an interesting fight there. We've got Wilder booked up against Helenius. I expect Wilder to come through that fight simply because he's got his right hand, and if that lands at any moment, it's game over. Wilder looks focused. I've seen a couple of clips of him and Malik Scott back training again as well. So, and he's been talking about doing mental rounds of sparring, which I'll take with a pinch of salt, because yeah, anything Wilder says I would probably take with a pinch of salt. We just had Zhang versus Hergerich. That was a very interesting fight because Zhang looked really good. I think a lot of people were expecting him to be blown over in a couple of rounds by Hergerich, and you could see towards the end of the fight Hergerich was actually getting very, very frustrated that he couldn't get him out there, man. He was just eating everything Hergerich was throwing at him, which was, yeah, it was a cracker. I think if that fight was in Wembley, the atmosphere in there would have been absolutely mental. It would have been electric before Usyk and Joshua come out. But yeah, so Hergerich is another opponent there. We've got Joyce and Parker obviously happening. That's confirmed. I think that's towards the end of September. So that'll be interesting to see who comes out of there. I don't know if Joyce is a very favourable matchup for AJ, simply because he just keeps walking forward and taking shots, and he will take shots to give shots. So that's a very, very interesting one. So there's a lot of fights there that's scheduled to happen. So if I was AJ, what I'd kind of do is wait and see what the fallout is of those fights, see who wins, see who loses, who looks good in the fights, and then kind of pick where you want to go from there. Because I mean, the heavyweight division at the moment is probably the best it's been in a very, very long time. It's very entertaining. There's a lot of good fighters in there. There's young fighters, but there's also a couple of older guys that are probably on their last chance of that title push. I think, yeah, you've got I've missed out one as well. You've got Hunter versus Fury as well. That's been rescheduled. So in terms of fights for AJ, there's plenty of stuff out there. There's absolutely no need for him to retire. Everyone in the UK and I'm sure across the world wants to see him get back in the ring. He's a very, very entertaining fighter, and because he's a very good finisher in the ring, his fights are always exciting. So I think I speak for most people when I say that we look forward to see AJ back in the ring very soon. Right, let's move on to Tyson Fury. This guy spoke the whole week through the build up to the Usyk versus AJ fight, and now he was on TalkSport yesterday speaking to Simon Jordan and his little crew. He's basically saying, you either pay me a lot of money or I'm not really fussed about fighting Usyk. I think a lot of people are kind of in the same boat that he has to fight Usyk to kind of cement himself as a generational great. Because of what Usyk's done. He's obviously collected all the bouts at cruiserweight, then moved up, and he's got the WBC bout left to collect again, which is pretty mental. And a lot of people have now started obviously bringing him into that pound for pound conversation. Tyson Fury's kind of just dismissing that. He's just basically saying this guy was like, he was a middleweight, like I would smoke him, but if you pay me the right amount of money, I'll come out and fight him. Which is so weird. Like, with Fury, obviously he said if it was AJ that won, I would have fought him for free. Yeah, like I'm sure you would have, mate. But yeah, it's interesting nonetheless. So that stuff, I feel like there's going to be a lot of back and forth. Frank Warren's basically said that they're just deciding on the venue. So which one is it? Like, does he know how much he's going to be? Obviously he's going to get a shitload. If they go Saudi again, they're going to get paid a stupid amount to host an undisputed heavyweight title fight. But yeah, I can't actually see it being anywhere else. Even Vegas, like, they're not going to be able to basically give out that kind of money, the numbers that they're looking for. But it's an interesting one. We'll see how that progresses over the next couple of weeks, couple of months. I think they're targeting a December 17th date, so that'll be just before the World Cup final, if I'm correct. So yeah, that flipping out, there'll be a lot of sport on at the time and it'll be popping off. So yeah, it'd be the perfect time to have that fight. That is it. I don't think I've missed anything there in terms of the heavyweight division. That was a quick, basically a whistle-stop tour. That was just bringing you what's going on in the heavyweight division, what we can kind of expect in the next coming months. But it was just a little update. We haven't done any boxing stuff really in quite a while, so I thought I'd jump on here and basically just wrap up what's going on in the heavyweight division. So if you've enjoyed this video, like I said, like it, subscribe to the channel, stay tuned, and we will be bringing you more content in the future.